Hello, and welcome to the first ever college football breakdown on this channel that you'll be seeing. Today is May 7th, and I want to go through the top 4 teams in each of the Power 5 conferences. To start off, I want to go with the SEC. I feel like this is probably the easiest one to break down. I've got Georgia number 1. That should be pretty easy. They're coming off of 2 national championships back-to-back years. They lost Stetson Bennett to the draft. They lost both their offensive and defensive coordinators, so that will be a little bit of a question mark. Who is going to be the quarterback for Georgia? I don't know yet. I like their out-of-conference schedule. They don't play anybody too notable. They will have to go on the road and face Tennessee, I believe, this year. But again, the other opponents that they got from the other side of the division are not that tough. So I do like some of the matchups this year that they're going to have. I think that Kirby Smart will be able to figure it out with whoever their quarterback is going to be. Also, the defense, all NFL guys pretty much every year. I mean, Georgia players are just getting drafted every single year. Brock Bowers is going to still be there. I'm sure their offensive line is going to be fine, losing Broderick Jones in the first round. But Georgia, number 1. Number 2, pretty decisively, Alabama. They're going to be back. Again, they're losing their quarterback. They lost Bryce Young. They're losing their coordinators. So I just err on the side that Nick Saban is going to figure it out, because I think one thing that Nick Saban has done is figure things out the last 15 years. So they'll be fine. They do have to play that game at home against Texas, which I'll get into Texas in a little bit. They play LSU at home. They play Tennessee at home. So all of their tough games are pretty much happening in their home stadium, which is different than last year when they had to go on the road to face Texas. They went on the road to face LSU. They went on the road to face Tennessee. So they get all these matchups at home this year. Number 3, I'm going to go with LSU, the team that did knock off Alabama thanks to a great 2-point conversion last year. Love college football because that's just what can happen. Brian Kelly in year number 2. You think he can only go up from there, right? I was at their bowl game against Purdue where they knocked them off. I believe it was like 63-7. It was Drew Brees' first coach game, and it was not a pretty showcase for Purdue. Jaden Daniels will still be there. They lost some of their players like Kayshon Boutte in the draft, even though he had some off-the-field issues that went on inside of their staff. I believe Brian Kelly will be able to fix them up and be okay in year number 2. They might take a little bit of a step back, because I think Alabama will be the team that comes out of the West. The 4th team I'm going to have up is Tennessee. I think they do take a step back after knocking off LSU, after knocking off Alabama and throttling LSU. Their only loss last year was in the regular season to Georgia, if I remember correctly. No, they also had that loss to South Carolina. That was ugly. Yeah, Tennessee, 4 spot. I don't know who else could take this spot right now out of the SEC. I mean, you look at the coaching pedigree from throughout the conference. There's still Lane Kiffin at Ole Miss. There's still Jimbo Fisher at Texas A&M. So I'm leaning towards Tennessee with Josh Heupel, former UCF coach. A lot of guys didn't like him at UCF, but guy runs offense the right way. The last time we saw Tennessee was when they routed Clemson in that Orange Bowl game, I believe, and they made Clemson kind of look like their little brother to the Pac-12. This one I think is probably the most fun conference. If you want my honest opinion, the Pac-12 might be the deepest conference we have in college football. USC at number 1. Obvious reasons. Caleb Williams coming off a Heisman. He can have a Joe Burrow type season. He's a little bit better of a runner. Makes plays. I hate using comparisons, but like Patrick Mahomes. So he can improvise. He can make throws that a lot of people can't. The only issue is last time we saw USC, they lost to Tulane. They also, right before that, lost to Utah to get into the college football playoff. So not the best showcase we've seen from them in their last couple weeks last year. Now, I don't really like what they did. I thought they'd fix up their defense, but I really don't see a lot of changes that they made to their defense. So I believe Lincoln Riley, offense will be explosive as ever. They do have a lot of tough games this year. I believe they play Oregon. I believe they play Utah. I believe they play Washington. Second, the boldest take I'll probably have today is that Oregon State is going to be the second best team in the Pac-12. I really love their defense. They did not lose a lot in the draft except for their tight end that went in, I believe, the second round. Jonathan Smith, the coach of Oregon State, has turned them around, has brought them to a winning team, 10-win team last year after not winning above 7 in his first 4 years. Also, he was a quarterback for Oregon State, and that's what Oregon State really needed. As you saw, they beat Oregon last year. They came back without a quarterback. They ran the ball pretty much the whole second half and still was able to beat Oregon. And at quarterback, they got DJU from Clemson, so I think that should help him out because he's at least competent. We've seen him against Wake Forest. We've seen him against Notre Dame put up great games, so he can do it. But we'll see if he's able to do it on the West Coast this time. Number 3, I'm going with Oregon, a team that could just as easily be above Oregon State here, but I just like Oregon State better right now. Go Beavers. Oregon at number 3, Bo Nix returns. Love his game. I remember when he was a freshman at Auburn when he played that great game against, well, it was Oregon. So, yeah, and now he transfers to Oregon. Kind of funny. But last year, he was really coming onto the scene, had a great year. Now, I know people got to be looking like, where is Washington? They're not in my top 4. I think this might be the worst take I could have, is that I really like Michael Penix. I really like that offense, but I don't have them in my top 4 of Pac-12 teams because of how deep that conference is. At number 4, I've got Utah. I love Cam Rising. Biggest Utah Utes fan because as you can see that flag up there, Ohio State. Thank you, Utah, for knocking USC out of the playoffs. Love you. Utah, Cam Rising still there. Kyle Whittingham still there. They're still one of the best teams at home in the country. I believe they've lost something like 2 or 3 games out of their last, 20 games at home. So they're a top 4 Pac-12 team. And I think Washington would be a top 2 team in other conferences, but not in this one because of how deep the Pac-12 is. Moving on to the Big Ten. I know you guys are probably thinking, this is my number 1 team. They are not. It is not Ohio State. Everything in here has Ohio State on it. I could probably grab like 3 other things. So yes, number 1 team in the Big Ten is not going to be Ohio State. Everything in here screams Ohio State. It's going to be Michigan. Back-to-back wins against Ohio State. Just did it in Columbus. Back-to-back college football playoff appearances, even though they have not gotten out of the first round. Back-to-back Big Ten championships. So Michigan, only 2 losses in the last 2 years? One of them to TCU, one of them to Georgia. So I'm not picking against Michigan here. I think I would love to put Ohio State at number 1, but I think Ohio State's on one of those prove-it deals right now. It's Ryan Day. He needs to prove to a lot of Buckeye fans, not to me. I love Ryan Day. But to a lot of people out there that he is the guy because a lot of people think he inherited success and didn't earn it. Even though I'm not going to lie, I like this version of Ohio State better than the Urban Meyer one, even though that was more physical and more defensive. So, number 2, Ohio State. Reasons. Who is our quarterback? Who is their quarterback, I should say. Kyle McCord is looking like the guy right now. He went to high school with Marvin Harrison Jr., so maybe they will already have that connection. Offensive line still might be a little shaky. They lost 3+ guys in the draft this year. Chatter around the campus, it seems like the defense is much improved. Weapons are going to be fine. Running backs are going to be fine. Tight ends are going to be fine. Ohio State hasn't had a bad quarterback since like 2008, so whoever they pick is going to be good enough. But still, until I see who that quarterback is, which right now it's looking like Kyle McCord, I can't say that they are the best team in the conference when Michigan has J.J. McCarthy, who's only a sophomore, I believe. Number 3, Penn State, Drew Aller, know the name. He is a freshman. It is his team now, most likely, and he's a guy that a lot of Nittany Lion fans are excited about. Can do great things with the ball. 6'5", 240, I believe is his frame. I mean, he's got Justin Herbert written all over it, a little bit bigger, and so he's a big, strong kid. Great build, probably going to be an NFL quarterback in a couple years. Remember that name, Drew Aller. Number 4, shot in the dark. It's like throwing darts. I'm going with Iowa. I think there's a clear gap between 2 and 3, with Ohio State at 2 and Penn State at 3. A little bit of a gap there. And then there's an even bigger gap between Penn State and between Iowa. They declined me for a job there because I wasn't fit. That's okay, I get it. Iowa number 4. Now I should say I don't see them making a big enough jump to win the Big Ten, but their schedule also very favorable. They play Penn State, but they don't have to play Michigan or Ohio State. So could be a nice thing for them. Big 12, I'm going Texas number 1. Now, kind of controversial because they do have to play that game at Bama. Who is Texas's quarterback, though? Because a lot of people tell you it's Quinn Ewers, but then I hear a lot of people saying it's Arch Manning. Now, last year, you argue that Quinn Ewers would have beaten Alabama. Then how are you not going to have him play that game against Bama in week 2 or 3? Arch Manning obviously seems to be the better prospect. He's a perfect prospect, but who is your quarterback right now? I don't know who it is. I think until they figure it out, I can't pick them to be the better team, but I did here. Number 2, Oklahoma, probably winning the Big 12. Dylan Gabriel will be healthy, and he'll make some noise. I like Oklahoma, and you'll see me talk about it later, but like Oklahoma's my sneaky team to maybe get into the playoffs. I don't have them in the playoffs, spoiler alert, but I think they can get into there because they don't play anyone tough out of conference. And their in-conference schedule, they drew some of the not as hard teams. Kansas State number 3, TCU at number 4. I don't have a lot to say about these. I just assume both of these are going to take a step back. Let's go to the ACC, the final conference. Am I reading that correctly? I'm already going through 4 conferences. Wow. Clemson number 1. Clemson runs the AAC. They didn't lose a single game last year. all of their tough games are at home. Notre Dame at home, North Carolina at home, Florida State at home. All three of those are probably their toughest games, and all of them they get to play in the comfort of Tiger Stadium. What is their stadium called? Death Valley? I don't know. Number 2, Florida State. All my notes are here is I don't buy it. Jordan Travis, okay, right? I'm seeing a lot of hype about Florida State. I don't think they're the second best team in their conference, but I'm putting them there over North Carolina because I didn't like the way North Carolina closed out their season. Drake May needs to take a big step. I think that a lot of people look at Drake May as the second best quarterback already, and while we've seen flashes of it, show me a whole season of it, because I feel like it's been very limited. Like, I know he put up 61 points against Appalachian State, but like, great. Number 4 again, shooting darts, Miami. I have no clue. Tyler Van Dyke, maybe. I don't know what's going on with Miami. They had a terrible year last year. I find it hard to believe that it'll happen again. Now, the final thing we're going to be doing today, I'm going to give you my college football playoff top 6 predictions. Number 1, I'm going with Georgia. Easy schedule, back-to-back champions. They should be the favorite, and they are the favorite to get back and be number 1. Number 2, USC. They didn't finish the season that well last year. Like I said, they lost to Tulane. They lost to Utah. Utah game wasn't particularly close. Tulane game lost it right at the end. Caleb Williams can make that Joe Burrow type of jump to be a great player again. I don't know how he can get a lot better than he was last year when he won the Heisman, but he can do it. Number 3, Alabama. Again, hard games at home. You're seeing the trend here. The teams that have a more favorable schedule are the teams that I'm putting up at the top. Now, Bama can still lose to LSU. They can still lose to Tennessee. They can still lose to Texas, but all 3 of those games are going to be at home. So I like that lookout for them. Number 4, Michigan. J.J. McCarthy is back, and it will be his sophomore year. And I think if he plays as good, and if not makes a better step to be better than he was this year, Michigan will be fine. They obviously lost some talent defensively and on the offensive line. Blake Corum returns. Donovan Edwards returns. And if you remember, they are, 6 months removed from going into Columbus and beating Ohio State by 22 points, where Donovan Edwards had one hand and Blake Corum was injured. They get both those guys back, who are arguably some of their better players. Number 5, Ohio State. Obviously, they can beat Michigan. All right, they've done it for 10 out of the last 12 years or whatever it was. All right, show me first, though. That's the thing. I'm not picking these teams until they show me. All right, they've lost back-to-back years. They just did it at home, both by 20 points to Michigan. How can you expect to be in the playoffs? I know they kind of got lucky with Utah. Thank you, Utah. But again, get your quarterback. If Kyle McCord can play, we'll see in the Notre Dame game in week 3 or 4. Then high hopes for Ohio State, but right now they're on the outside looking in. Number 6, here's my surprise, Oklahoma. I like Oklahoma. I like their schedule. Very favorable schedule for them. Other than that Texas game, they can win every game. So let's just say they lose one of those random games. I don't even know who they play, Kansas State or Oklahoma State. But they beat Texas. They go into their conference championship game with 1 loss. They beat whoever it is again. And then they're 12-1. They're getting into the playoffs. That's going to be my list. Again, Georgia, USC, Alabama, Michigan at 1, 2, 3, 4. And then I got Ohio State, Oklahoma on the outside looking in. But thank you all for watching this. Let me know if you enjoyed the insight. And I'll see y'all with another video. Bye-bye.